We live. Apparently, you are alive. I'm alive. The people watching are alive because you wouldn't be able to watch me if you weren't alive. Maybe. As you come in, put some emoticons in the air where it's fair because today we are talking about real change for a change. Now, some of y'all are not informed about the situations that are taking place in your environment, in your communities, when it comes down to do with the people. And the number one reason for this, in my opinion, is care. Some don't care, and it has a lot to do with their circumstances. If their circumstances is A-okay, or so they believe, they don't need to care about the people that they work for. Because anytime you're in any type of service, that means you are working for the people. But some want you to believe that it's the other way around. Concentration. Now, some don't realize the connotation surrounding programming. When you program something, you're computing, inputting things. Programming talks about indoctrination. So that means you want whoever is viewing, listening, sitting in any environment where you claim there's instruction being given, to adhere to your programming. Concentration. Put a camp after that. Listen. The one thing that I've learned out of all of my years living is the systems repeat things. Repetition. One being so you get it, and the other being because people need to work, right? So when you talk about real change, you have to really have something that is worthy of being seen as a change. When we put the economic state that we are in into change, that means something. That means less is more. So when less is more, that talks about if someone has already been instructed in something, then they don't need to go through that instruction again and again and again and again. Now they may need a revamp, a reminder, but they don't need to go through programming for 6 months because the system has already did that and seen that it either works or it doesn't. Now, the reason why real change is the topic is because nothing changes when people don't care. Absolutely nothing. You know, I was getting instruction from St. John, and he said, why did they use my name for that institution? And I said, wow, they just running off all willy-nilly and naming themselves things. And then the name don't match the energy. You know what I'm talking about? One thing, when I was going through my instruction throughout my decades of living, is I was always taught that when you work for an establishment, you look better when you know the history surrounding that establishment. Some of y'all can agree. Something like when you go on a tour, right? You go on a tour and the person that is proceeding, taking you through all of these different places, knows the background history of it. Certain occupations, you must know the history of a place. Unless you feel like the people that are in observation don't matter because you have a job. Interesting. Concentration. Yeah. When the system goes through what they call an AUDIT, they want to know what worked, greetings Van Glorious, and what didn't. And when they see that something is not working, then they exit out. That's common sense, right? If you see that something is not working, it gets crossed out because it's not efficient. I might not be the sharpest knife in the drawer, but let me tell you something. When I would go for a position at any establishment, I had to have the qualifications, not skills, to be able to work for that institution, or I wasn't getting a job. Apparently, things have changed. Apparently, you don't need degrees for certain institutions. Did y'all know that? I remember when I found out that I did not need a certification to work in a doctor's office. I found that out after going 12 grand in DEBT, which I received none of that money. The institution did. When I was on my externship, that's when I realized, wow, everybody in the front office is not certified. They were saying, I worked at a BANK before I came here, and laughing. This is the type of stuff that I ran into while feeling like I needed more education. Go figure. Some of the greatest would say that they didn't get degrees to be in the position that they are in. They may have went to college, but not university. So what makes it to where some people need to be certified, bona fide, and classified, and others don't? What makes it that way? Anyone have any answers? Because I would like to know. If you need a food certificate to work in a restaurant, per se, then why wouldn't you need a doctorate to work in a service where you say that you are a therapist? Why wouldn't you? And then, I could be wrong. If there's any instructors, professors, teachers that can tell me if you have to be certified to have the position that you're currently holding. Do you have to have a degree to have that position? Or is it, a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend somewhere? There was an era where a lot of people got employed because they knew someone. That never ever applied to me. I had to work triple hard to get every position that I ever held. And it does something to you. It plays into that statistics where they talk about the number of people that go to college specifically and get a degree or a university, and they don't work in the field that they got a degree in. You ever wonder why that is? I mean, these are things that will jar you. Because you said, I got all this DEBT and all of these LOANSs, and I don't even use it. And so when we talk about making the world a better place, it starts by us being efficient. That means you don't need 6 individuals teaching what they call courses that are not qualified. Simple as that. Because you know what happens? They start smelling themselves. They start believing that they have the power to put you out. I remember I had a conversation and someone said, you need 6 months worth of your rent or mortgage in a savings for cushion. And I said, you're going to spend 4 months stressing and 2 months trying to figure out where you're going to stay at the end of that 2 months. Because when you are going through a recession, that does something to you. You're trying to find a way out, you're trying to find help, and all of a sudden, there's no help. Then you start realizing, this program is not working. You say, they're all the same. Why are all the services that require care dominated with people that don't care? No one knows their job. Have y'all ever noticed that? No one takes pride unless they're in, let's say, work at Mickey D's or something like that. Maybe you know. But when you're talking about up there, where you start making salary and all of that, it seems like no one knows their job. They can tell you about what you need to do, but they don't know the ins and outs. When you go up for a raise, that matters. What are you bringing to the table? Those things that they ask during a real interview mean something. Because the first person that sat down and said, what will you bring to this company, really meant it. They wanted to know what you would bring that would be different. That would be a change, a real change. One thing I can say about this era is it is leveling the playing field. You know what I'm talking about? Leveling the playing field. There's a statement that says, if you want change, then you need to be the person that changes. That's interesting. If you want to see a change, you got to be the change. Y'all remember that? Because I do. That's pretty hard to do. Have you ever just said one day that I'm going to call some of these places that supposedly are helping people better their lives and see what happens? Because that would be real change. If you decided that you were going to talk to some of these places with 501c3s and see what Undercover Boss, y'all remember that show? They need to make that a real thing. For those that don't know what Undercover Boss is, that's when the boss would go undercover in his own establishment to see how the people were being treated, to see how the workers were doing. The Big G does it all the time. He puts his angels in places to see how they will be treated. And then all of a sudden, whoever thought that having 6 months worth of savings would be a cushion had to have support. Because after that 6 months, they realized it's not that easy. You don't know this until you go through something. When you hear me saying in my readings that someone is attempting to capitalize off their fame, or someone wants to capitalize off of your fame, that is telling. Because that means you ain't got no money, but you had an aha moment and you decided that I could use this. You know what I mean? They try to do it to me all the time. They want to monetize my fame. It's kind of hard to do on this platform because this is where they feel they could do it. When it already has a dollar sign attached to it, you can't do it here. This is a perfect protocol because this one connects you with everything else. I feel like it's the perfect medium because once it goes here and you try to put it somewhere else, it gets flagged. You know what I'm talking about? The reason why real change is important is you have to really want the change. It can't just be a catchy slogan. You know what I'm talking about? When people feel like you down and out, they will put every bit of their 10 toes in your neck. They gonna dig them toes in there. But when they encounter someone like me, okay, it's a little bit different. Because I might be down, but I'm not out. And that may be what I need to wake me up. You know what I'm talking about? Like a cup of coffee that I did not have this morning. Because apparently someone thinks I drink coffee all day. That was the old me. I would make 2 pots of coffee and drink it all day. That was before I ascended. You know, I've spoke with some people, right? If they knew what I seen on them, they wouldn't be so confident. It would look a lot different if I was somebody like Oprah Winfrey or something, talking to someone where they knew that I had the ability to upgrade them if I chose to. You know, when you're talking to someone that you know has the ability to upgrade you or demote you, the conversation is totally different. Y'all know what I'm talking about? The conversation is way different. When you're talking to someone that is condescending, they talk to you and look at you as if you are beneath them because of your situation, while not ever, ever touching as much money as you, if you're someone like me. This is an extension of Ether Gets Evicted. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Because when I said to you, when things that are detrimental happen to me, there's a change that comes after. Some of y'all are aware because it's been proven. Regardless if you want to put 2 and 2 together, because every other time you do. I feel like there's a whole shelter system that needs to be revamped. That's what I feel like. Because there's no real change. Y'all know what I'm talking about? If it's not working, then it needs to go. Because after all, those that contribute are the ones that need to know that their money goes into a multitude of 501c3s, not just SNAP. And when you start realizing that some things are put in the forefront for you to blame a certain class of individuals, wow, someone is taking out of the cookie jar right under your nose, you'll start thinking different. You know how they say the cuts always come from the bottom? I think you need to start a quarter up. Let's not go from the bottom per se. Let's start where these establishments is supposed to help you and they don't. Because that would be efficient. You ever just go into a shelter and sit and eat? Just all of a sudden, just pop up. Don't tell them you're coming, because then it'll be real change. Just pop up. That's what I think should happen. Oh, this is even better. How about breathalyzers while you're on duty? Because that's real change right there. Just randomly, because some people don't think fat meat greasy. You know what I'm talking about? You see how he just put you right in eyesight? All of a sudden, you just see ether. Just all of a sudden, there she is. Wow. An NDA is not for somebody like me. Listen. If some of y'all knew what was happening behind these doors of these establishments that say they're helping people, you would be appalled. What I feel like is real change needs to happen, but it starts by looking at the ones that you do not feel you need to look at. You know, I understand because I thought I was going to be a medical assistant at one point. I understand that you need a certain amount of hours to get your certification, right? Which I also got. But when you are hired as a therapist and you don't have the qualifications to meet that obligation, then something is not right. That is a high-ranking title, don't y'all think? I mean, if you go and I mean, some systems are made to where people can graduate. The system, if you go and work for any system that is legit, usually you'll find externs. We talked about that. But when you are out of the system and you're somewhere where you're supposed to be helping people, you expect to see someone that is qualified there. Because then you'll see a different type of energy. It's not condescending. It's not, oh, I got an hour. An hour. When I went to therapy, okay, only been a handful of times, the person that was there treated me with kindness and respect. She did not say that I only have an hour in the midst of me telling her, my child, this is something that was stated before. And if you went over, so be it. Because the man upstairs is the one that gives you that raise. I know you don't think he does, but he does. And I'm not talking about Jesus. What y'all need to understand is the eye is always on the sparrow. That is it.